Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan today previewed the Biden administration's new national security strategy. A top issue, how to deal with China's efforts to reshape international order. The strategy refers to China as America's most consequential geopolitical challenge. And NTD's Melina Wisecup has more.
22 months into the Biden administration, the White House has unveiled a new national security strategy. The 48-page document begins with the letter from the president where he says he believes the world is at an inflection point and that the decisions the United States makes today will determine the direction for the world. Now, in this new strategy, the White House lists Russia and China as global priorities. Unsurprisingly, they also pledged to hold Beijing accountable for its human rights abuses, something that the White House is referring to as crimes against humanity. Now, it also notes China's economic edge. Here's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan commenting on this new strategy earlier today.
Is that a successful approach to dealing with competition with the PRC means not making countries choose sides, not dividing the world into rigid blocks, and not making our relationship with countries kind of dependent on some kind of proxy fight between the US and the PRC.
As for China tariffs, the White House has been floating the idea of waiving the Trump-era tariffs as a way to deal with inflation. But for now, these tariffs will stay in place while the policy is under a 4-year review. The national security plans comes as President Biden is warning Saudi Arabia that there will be consequences for the kingdom's decision to scale back oil production. The U.S. accuses OPEC of helping Russia.
The only beneficiary that we can see for OPEC's decision is Russia at the moment.
Some members in Congress now calling to punish the region by freezing arms sales to Saudi Arabia.
They get almost 73% of their arms from the United States.
And I am very hopeful that the president will act immediately. He has the power to stop these sales.
Melina, how are Saudi officials responding to this push from lawmakers to cut ties with the kingdom?
So Senator Blumenthal says the goal here is to encourage Saudi Arabia to change course on those oil cuts. He also says that they aim to continue cooperation with Saudi Arabia. They just want to rebalance that relationship between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. Now, in addition to this piece of legislation, there's also another piece of legislation being pushed by Senior Senator Dick Durbin called the NOPEC legislation. Now, this would allow our Justice Department to file lawsuits against OPEC Plus under U.S. antitrust laws. Now, to get to your question, how is Saudi Arabia responding to these actions and this push from U.S. lawmakers? Well, Saudi Foreign Minister earlier today made an interesting comment about the timing of this, pointing out that the U.S. right now is in an election cycle. Let's listen.
Unfortunately, when you're in the election season, what some people call the funny season, a lot of things are said and a lot of things are done that may not make sense at another period of time. And I hope that this is what we're dealing with here.
Now, Saudi Arabia and other countries a part of OPEC Plus are continuing to stand by that statement that they believe that they've made the right decision because their goal is to stabilize the global oil markets. Now, our gas prices here in the U.S. have jumped about 10 cents since last week when OPEC Plus made that announcement to draw back their production. Steve, back to you.
Melina, thank you for that. A group of Republican senators is condemning the Justice Department's attempts to silence dissent about gender transition surgeries for minors. Senator Ted Cruz led the group. They sent a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland saying his department has abused its authority to police speech in order to stifle the debate over gender transition surgeries for minors. The senators are demanding the DOJ's communications with the American Academy of Pediatrics, American Medical Association, and Children's Hospital Association. They say this is to conduct congressional oversight and bring accountability. Earlier today, a total of at least 5 on-duty police officers were shot across the country. This alarming trend brings to light the drastic increase of crime across our nation. Here to assess, we have Representative Diana Harshbarger. Congresswoman Diana Harshbarger, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, my pleasure.
Congresswoman, at least 5 police officers were shot this morning between Pennsylvania and Illinois. What do you think is the driving force behind this lawlessness and rise in crime?
Well, it depends on who's running the city or the state. And we're seeing that rise in crime in blue states. You know, they take their cue from leadership. And I'm here to tell you, Steve, you look at Philadelphia, you look at New York, you look at these places where they have Democratic leaders, and lawlessness breeds lawlessness. I say this all the time. Why would you even want to go into law enforcement when you face risk every day, just, giving somebody a warrant or just going to check on domestic violence or even a well check that you're not going to come home to your loved ones? It's pathetic that they wouldn't have the backs of law enforcement in these areas.
Another issue for you here. Some of your colleagues over in the Senate have raised concerns about the Department of Justice inserting itself to stifle free and open discussion, specifically on this issue with regard to life-altering gender reassignment surgery for minors. Are these social issues going to motivate people to vote in the midterms, do you think?
Well, it's certainly going to motivate my district, and any parent who loves their children, you're going to do what's right for your children. You know, in the state of Tennessee, Vanderbilt University is what is prevalent right now. When you see the words pediatric transgender clinic, all that in one sentence, you know, those two words should never be used together, pediatric and transgender. That should be a red flag. And some of the things that they've uncovered doing investigations there is that they have talked to children as young as 6. Now, I have grandsons that are 5 and 7, and you want to rile a grandmother up or a mom and dad, that's how you do it, is confuse those precious children as for them wondering what their gender identity is. Do you really think you're a boy? Do you really think you're a girl? That is really, it's an abomination. And they stopped that, the clinic from rendering any more services right now. But that's not the only place. There are many other clinics across this country. And yes, I get questioned about that every time I step out in any county I go to, because this is something that you never heard of even a few years ago. But also uncovered are some videos that say this is a moneymaker. And when you put children on puberty blockers and just let them see if that's going to help with the issue, they can decide, what can they decide at 6 or 7 years old? For God's sakes, what color shirt they want to wear. Not if they think they're a girl or a boy. Like I say, common sense is not common, and it's in short supply in D.C. and a lot of other states.
Congresswoman, you sit on the Education Committee. You've had a front row seat to the debate of what's being taught in schools throughout the country. There have been a number of culture wars playing out, whether it be comprehensive sex education or critical race theory. Where are these issues now in terms of being inserted into classrooms nationwide?
Oh, it's a problem everywhere. You may think, and I have a lot of rural area in my district, and you think that you're sheltered from that. Because we're part of the Bible Belt here in East Tennessee, but you're not. You know, the pronouns that these young children or older children in high school want to be called, but they don't want their parents to know, or vice versa. It's just, these things have crept in. And that's why, to his face, the Secretary of Education, I said, if I had anything to do with it, sir, I would get rid of this whole department at the federal level and let the states handle it at the state levels. And you saw what happened in Virginia when they elected their governor, Governor Youngkin. He ran on education. Parents should absolutely have the say-so in what their children are taught and what they choose to learn. And, for them to call the parents have the DOJ to go after those parents and call them terrorists or a threat it's unbelievable. And parents do have a huge part to play in their children's education, because if the public sector fails in educating those children, then it's going to be school choice. Those parents are going to take those children out, put them in Christian schools or other schools, charter schools, where they know they're going to get the education that they deserve and that they want for their children.
Tennessee Congresswoman Diana Harshbarger, thank you.
My pleasure.
As the midterm elections draw near, lawmakers and other office holders are making their endorsements, some of them endorsing candidates from the opposite party. In Philadelphia, former Deputy Mayor Tom Knox, a lifelong Democrat, is opposing the Democratic nominee for Senate, John Fetterman. Knox says Fetterman is soft on crime and that his policies on crime will make things much worse. Meanwhile, Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger from Illinois is also crossing party lines and endorsing a handful of Democrats. He endorsed 4 Democratic candidates for Secretary of State in Minnesota, Michigan, Arizona, and Nevada. He also endorsed Democrats for governor of Pennsylvania and Arizona. Kinzinger has clashed with former President Trump and was one of 2 Republicans on the January 6th committee. And high-profile and now former Democrat and Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard has announced she is leaving the Democratic Party for a wide range of issues, including the Democratic Party's open border policies and Biden's escalating tensions with Moscow. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.